Good morning. My name's Asher Walden, and I'm going to be introducing you to the Empyrean Project. What is the Empyrean Project? The Empyrean Project is an attempt to teach philosophy in a very different way. So philosophy is usually taught through reading books, reading classic philosophers, maybe lectures, maybe seminars like this. But my project, my aim and goal was to think of a different way in which people could not only learn philosophical ideas or the names of philosophers, but actually put philosophy into practice in their lives. So I'm sort of an odd bird, I guess, because I actually think that philosophy is really important, and I think that it's really helpful. And all of my life I've been studying philosophy, and particularly religious philosophy and philosophy of religion. And so I have maybe a different perspective on what philosophy is and can be, um, because I think that philosophy really is about the ways in which humans find meaning and purpose and direction in their lives. And so in order to kind of hash that out and present everything that I've learned over the years in a way that would be helpful, I designed the Empyrean Deck. And this is sort of the first mass-produced version of it. This is the back. In this series of videos, I'm going to be introducing each card one at a time. And as I go, I'm going to say something about the system as a whole. So today I will be talking about the first card is the Empyrean card, hence the name the Empyrean Deck. It's sort of the most important card, and it sort of brings everything together. And it will also give me an opportunity to talk about the relationship between philosophy on the one hand and religion or spirituality on the other. I don't think it's an understatement to say that our most urgent questions and problems and suffering is in some respect a spiritual problem or a cultural problem or a way in which humans, again, find meaning or fail to find meaning or purpose in their lives. I've have been really surprised by the number of young people who I've met and talked with over the last, even just the last couple of years, who describe themselves as having an existential crisis or existential suffering. I think young people, maybe this is always true, and maybe it's true now more than ever, but people are having a hard time understanding what they should be doing with their time. And by time, I mean every moment of the day for their entire lives. It's not just about finding a career. It's not just about how to vote. It really is a crisis of meaning, I think. And so the Empyrean card is sort of a way of talking about meaning in a secular slash post-secular age, right? Philosophy is not partisan. Philosophy is not primarily a way of persuading people to believe one doctrine or one religious tradition over another. And yet, there are ways in which we can, and I think should, talk about the sacred in the context of a secular society, in the context of a university, even maybe in the context of the workplace. And so, well, how does that work? Well, let me give you one example. One example, which I think is just wonderful, was of course the eclipse. I don't know if you had an opportunity to go out and get your glasses and stare up at that, but there's a lot of people who found that to be, for lack of a better word, a spiritual experience and a unifying experience. You know, something that helped put into perspective the smallness, I guess, of humans within the vast scope of the universe, but at the same time kind of brought us together, kind of showed that we humans and everyone on sort of planet Earth, we have something in common, right? I also think of this very, very influential photograph that was taken in the 60s, I think, or maybe early 70s. It was the very first photograph of planet Earth taken from space. And this, had kind of a spiritual flavor, right? So each of the cards in this deck, and this is really a way of understanding what this deck is about. Each of these cards is a way of experiencing something. We can talk about that something as being sacred, the numinous, spirituality, the presence of God, or we can talk about it in terms of our sense of meaning, our sense of intrinsic value, our sense of humans' place in the world. We can talk about it in perfectly secular terms. But however we talk about it, what we need is practice identifying those moments and learning how to access them. The general idea is the more opportunities we have to experience that sensation, the better our lives will be. The easier it will be to not just know, not just believe, but to sense that our lives are structured in intelligible and meaningful ways by forces and powers that are friendly to the human project, to human life. I could say that each of these is a way of experiencing the sacred, or I could just say that these are different ways of experiencing something meaningful, of value, of bringing a sense of purpose and joy and value into our lives. And I think that that's what philosophy is for. So this is the very first one, and it just has to do with things like any opportunity we have to experience or sense in some greater or lesser degree our finitude, our smallness, the sense that we are, that I guess our lives are not so important in the grand scope of things, right? That we live for this long in a universe that has existed for billions of years, right? In the scope of a universe whose size and whose meaning is so huge that it makes all of our problems seem sort of trivial. But when we open ourselves up to that kind of realization, it ironically has the reverse effect. It doesn't make us feel small. It doesn't make us feel meaningless. It doesn't make us feel invisible or useless. It actually can have the effect of simply because we can sort of cognize the infinite, simply because we can understand or have this experience of this huge scope, there's a way in which that perception allows us to participate in that infinity. Right? So this doesn't happen by itself. And again, the eclipse is a good example. The eclipse is, in some sense, a sacred experience. But it's not sacred for everybody, right? You have to, A, be standing in along the path of either the path of totality, which went from somewhere in Texas up through Vermont, up into Canada. So you have to be either in the path of totality or close enough that you get sort of an interesting effect. You also sure as heck better have your sunglasses, because you can't stare at that thing without burning your eyes out. And most importantly, you have to have sort of a desire or an interest or some kind of intellectual engagement with the eclipse. You have to know something about what you're looking at, and your mind has to sort of be open to having this kind of experience. And if your mind is sort of open to having this kind of experience and all the other sort of stars align, then, and only then, when you look up at the eclipse and experience it, you'll experience something. And that's the bottom line. You experience it. It's a possibility of experiencing something, again, describe it as numinous or sacred or spiritual, or simply describe it as something intrinsically valuable, that something that sheds light on what it means to be human, something that's kind of wonderful. And basically, the short story is, if you fill your life up with lots of these experiences, and there are lots of different kinds, right? Every single experience that is intrinsically valuable, every single experience of love or affection or friendship, every experience when you learn something new or create something new or do something different or accomplish something difficult, right? There's all sorts of opportunities in our lives to taste something transcendent, to experience something transcendent, to tie our lives and to tie our life story into something transcendent. So that's what the Empyrean card represents, and that's what the entire deck represents. It's a whole set of possibilities for experiencing the transcendent. So if you're interested in that and you want to, kind of experience more of these things, stay tuned. In the next video, I'll talk about the kind of number one card in the deck, the Arbiter, which has to do with philosophy, but it also has to do with social contract theory. It has to do with debate and dialogue, and it's a very, very different way of experiencing what it means to be human. So tune in for that. Thanks for listening.